Hello, my name's CaitlinHowells. This is my research, design, and pitch solution to the given brief. So to begin, I started off brainstorming some ideas of interesting data I could look for to visualize. So I started just looking at things that were Australian based to begin with, just because I felt like that could be an interesting. I guess there could be some interesting data within that. So I went on to Kaggle.com and just started looking up certain things like bushfire data, car crash data, what else? Unemployment rates. I thought there could be some interesting correlations with theft or the average age of the state, and maybe it could have something to do with like youth. I started looking at car crash data and the correlation, possibly seeing the correlation between speed limit, the month of crashes or crashes within the month, and then the average age within the state of driving, or like the early age to start driving, sorry. And a bunch of other possibilities, as you can see in my data ideas brainstorming sketch. Then once I felt like I had enough possible data to look for, I started thinking about inspiration, and so I found a couple interesting examples. One was where the wild things glow, which I really liked the aesthetic of it. I liked the way that it was, the information was separated, and then of course the way it was visualized as well I thought was really pretty and a possible interesting way to go. I also really liked the drowning in plastic data visualization that I found, as I felt like it clearly stated like everything that like the difference in color, the contrast really made it obvious how much plastic they were trying to convey. And then another one, the Atlas of Moods, which I really enjoyed, just the flow of views. And so after I felt that I had a good idea of what was possible, as well as what data I could start looking for, I started looking, for the data, basically. So a few things, the two that I really was excited to look for the most and thought I would just go pick two and see what data I could find and what was the most abundant. My preferred ones were Australian bushfires and car crash data, so I started looking for a bit more information on that. The first one I looked for was Australian bushfires. I found a bit of info. It wasn't exactly what I was after, which was month by month. I was going to look at month by month how much was burned in each state, and be able to flick through an interactive Australia and show like how big the fires were and how much they grew over the month. Like, it was really hard to find that, so I just stuck with how much land was burned per state, which I found a bit of info on that, which I thought was interesting. But I ended up finding a lot more interesting data on car crashes, so I thought I would look into that a bit further, and that's where I found quite a bit of information. I'll move on to the graphs section. So as you can see, I graphed the hectares burned in the 2020 fires, and this is compared with the percentage of hectares burned within the state. So I looked at how many hectares altogether in the state and how much was burnt, and then I graphed that first in this dot graph and another in a bar graph. And then I found it interesting, but I thought it wouldn't translate as well into a visual piece, so I started looking more into the car crash data and found that there were a few really interesting correlations. So the first one I looked at was the differences in months. So you can kind of see it's fairly normal, like there's no real spikes anywhere, so I was like, maybe that's interesting, but it's not like mind-blowing. I found really interesting actually the the speed data. So the most crashes occurred when people were going at 100 k's an hour. So it is interesting to see that, because obviously if going slower means less crashes, then I don't know, that's an interesting concept. And then the one that I found really interesting, and the one that I decided I would like to data visualize, was the crashes by night and by day. I wanted to compare what the difference was, and if nighttime, like, crashes occurred more often at night than they did during the day. And then I also did by month, so I graphed how, like, the changes in month, and if more crashes occurred at night during certain months in Australia, because obviously we have part of the year gets dark really early, so I thought maybe that might change it during different months. But yeah, so there's some interesting data to show that's almost double the amount of crashes during the day than there is at night. And yeah, so I started looking at how I could visualize that in an interactive way. So yeah, here's a few little graphs that I did and the possible ways that I would do it. I also looked at how it could be interactive, so I thought maybe I could look further and see how it changes over the years. So you can click through like 2019, 2018, 2017 and see how it changes and if it grows or if it stays the same. And then I looked at how you could do it with Australia as the background, and as you flick through the months, you can see how it changes through the circles. The circles will either like grow wider or smaller depending on the difference, so it's easy to visualize how big the difference is between day and night and month as well. So that's pretty much my presentation. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for listening.